Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to the Browns Postgame Reaction. Thanks for tuning on in as we react to the Browns win yesterday against the Buccaneers. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video on my channel and this content on the way in here. But yeah, let's get into it. So the Browns yesterday finally get back in the win column with a win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 23-17. Great game, great win. It was nice to finally see the Browns and Stefanski get a game that they weren't really supposed to win. They weren't favored to win, and really kind of stole the game at the end there. I mean, it's crazy. Tom Brady, who had the ball in hand at the end there to win the game multiple times, the Browns defense stepped up and shut it down. And I mean, obviously the Buccaneers, they're not really a great team at all. No, they're definitely not what they used to be, especially 2 years ago. Can't really run the ball, and their pass game's been kind of, that's all they've done all year is pass the ball, but their receiving core at times just hasn't been consistent. But yeah, man, the Browns stepped up finally. It was good to see. It was nice to finally see the defense play with more energy. It was nice to see Joe Woods be more aggressive. Uh, and I think you saw the results of the game. And I think, yeah, I just can't, I was just really, it was really nice to see us see the energy of the defense high. It was nice to see Joe Woods was fired up at times too, yelling with the players and stuff. That's the kind of stuff I want to see more of. Obviously, Joe Woods is getting criticized heavily this year, rightfully so, because the defense just has not been good at all. It's one of the worst in the league. But yesterday it looked like how a lot of people thought they could look this year based on the talent they have. And it was great to see. And I think, for me, there was a couple key players in this game. I think the first guy for me, though, speaking of defense, Martin Emerson. uh, Martin Emerson is a hell of a player. Martin Emerson was a third round steal. I can't believe this guy went to the third round. And I'm just going to go up the top. And I think a lot of people are saying today, Martin Emerson's been our best corner this year by far. I mean, Denzel, and I like Denzel. I've been a fan of Denzel since he was in college from Nordonia, 330 guy. But Denzel's, his availability is always a question. And, sometimes when he plays too, he maybe hasn't been up to the standard that a lot of people expect. Sometimes, but overall, we all know Denzel's a pretty good player, a great at times, great talent. But this year, Martin Emerson's been the best player as the corner position for them. This kid, a rookie, does not look like a rookie. And I think what's great about Martin Emerson, what's really intriguing about him is his size, the way he's able to move. I think he listed? It's like 6'3", almost like 210 or something like that, 210, 215, long, rangy corner. Just gives him a lot of versatility. And he went toe to toe yesterday with Mike Evans. You can see in the picture here, and he shut Mike Evans down. I mean, Mike Evans had. If I look at my other screen, Mike Evans had 9 targets yesterday and only caught 2 of them. And those 2 catches, I don't think were on Martin Emerson. I don't think Martin Emerson allowed a catch on him yesterday. That's how good Martin Emerson was yesterday. He was phenomenal, and I think this kid, for a rookie, is, like I said, I can't believe he fell to the third round. SEC player, played at Mississippi State. And he just plays like he's just a tough, gritty player. I really like watching him play. I really admire his game, the way he approaches the game, especially for a rookie. There's not a lot of fear with this kid, and that shows a lot of confidence too. For Joe Woods to lead this guy on an island yesterday against Mike Evans, and it was basically like, yeah, we'll take our chances, and it paid off because Martin Emerson went toe to toe with Mike Evans, and Mike Evans couldn't do nothing against this guy really. And not only that, I mean, of course, what's great about it too is the guy who was, yeah, you're guarding somebody, but look who the quarterback was throwing the ball. It was Tom Brady. And of course, obviously, Tom Brady's going to go right at the rookie every time. Every team, you always target the rookie corner. That's just what it is. And they tried it all game, especially in big spots, and it just did not work. Martin Emerson stepped up and was phenomenal. And I just think this guy's going to – I think this guy is going to be a great player in this league. I really do. I think eventually he might become our best corner and maybe a top 3 defender on his team. He has that capability, like I said, because of his uniqueness. His uniqueness is his size and length and his ability, his speed, his ability to cover, the way he can move side to side, vertically. I mean, this guy is a really intriguing player because you don't see a lot of corners of that kind of size and speed combination. And he's not like a skinny type of player either. He's like built. Like, and a lot of people that have seen him in person, they all say, like, people in the media I was listening to, like today they were talking about him obviously because he was probably the MVP of the game, especially definitely on defense. One of the best players in the game. He's just really, they say, just really big in person too. Like, he's just strong. And I just think, man, you got that kind of player now on your team. I think it gives them a whole lot of flexibility. I think in the future now, regardless of what happens with Joe Woods, especially for the rest of this season, but at the time more in the future, if they get a brand new coordinator like a Mike Zimmer, maybe a Vic Fangio, maybe a Brian Flores, I think Greg Newsom was a great pick because it gave them more flexibility on defense. Now they can move Greg Newsom to the inside. Or did I say Greg Newsom? Did I say? Well, I meant to say Martin Emerson was a great pick. I don't. I think I got it mixed up. Anyway, you guys know what I mean. Martin Emerson was a great pick because it gives them a lot more flexibility because now they can move Greg Newsom on the inside, play more Greg Newsom in the slot, which I think is more his natural cover because Greg Newsom is built more like a slot corner in a way. That's his size, but he's also strong too, so he can handle it. Where Denzel's not as strong as those two guys. Denzel needs to be on the outside like he's always been. And so I think Martin Emerson, the way he's coming along and the way he's playing is really giving this defense a whole lot, just a whole nother element that I think is really going to help them in the future. And so they got a lot of depth there. I think there was another guy. I can't remember his name. They said they added him off the. A lot of people are intrigued by. Yesterday was his first game. Graham. He's like a pure nickel corner. Thomas Graham from Oregon. He was a 6th-round pick in 2021. Played Chicago last year. But they said when he was on the field, he was solid. Yesterday was his first game with the Browns. And so I think there's a lot of talk about this guy. I thought for his first game, he did pretty well, Thomas Graham. I think, he got beat a couple times the other game by Chris Godwin, but he was right there. It wasn't like he got just burned. So, Chris Godwin's a great player. Him and Brady at the end of the game. But yeah, I think let me look at Thomas Graham Jr. A lot of people are fascinated with this guy. Could it be another corner in that secondary? They can go 4 deep now. And so I'm interested to see what this guy does the rest of the year. Like he's a pure slot corner, especially with his size. He's only, let me look. They even have his size listed? No, they don't. But whatever. He when you look at him, he's a pure slot corner. That's what he is. And so, again, another guy that's intriguing to watch the rest of the year. But I think overall, like I said, Martin Emerson yesterday was unbelievable. I just couldn't believe how well that guy showed up play for a rookie against Mike Evans and Tom Brady. And he didn't back down either. When you watch him, he was, as the game went on, it was the more confident he got. And it was just kind of like towards the end of the game, you're kind of like, I don't think they could complete a pass on this guy. And they couldn't. And so, shout out to Martin Emerson. Can't wait to watch him the rest of the year. And another great pick there. And then Nick Chubb yesterday. Nick Chubb, I thought, Nick Chubb's been great all year. He's been their most consistent player overall on the whole team. And it's a shame that they're 4-7, or they have 4-7 now, because I feel like if they were in a more winning, if this team was had a winning record, I think Nick Chubb could seriously be considered as, not saying he would, but I think he could be a MVP candidate, possibly, maybe a top 5, finish in the top 5. He probably wouldn't win it, obviously, but I just think his impact, Nick Chubb's impact, is so strong that, unfortunately, the defense didn't help out at all this year. I think that's a big reason why they have a losing record right now. But I feel like if Nick Chubb was this team was winning, I feel like Nick Chubb would have more consideration for MVP, just because I feel like that's his impact. He's only had, I think, one subpar game this year, and I think was that against the Dolphins, maybe it was, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe the Bills. One of the games recently, that was his only bad game this year. I mean, for the most part, the only time he doesn't get the numbers when they don't feed him the ball. But yesterday, 26 carries, 116 yards, 1 touchdown. Had the game-winning touchdown there at the end in overtime. I mean, Nick Chubb's he's the best running back in the league. I know Derrick Henry's having a hell of a year, and Derrick Henry's a phenomenal player. But I think Nick Chubb, considering this too, people need to remember this about what Nick Chubb's had to face this year, and really what Nick Chubb's had to face his whole career. Nick Chubb has faced probably more stacked boxes than any other elite running back in the league because of who his quarterback has been. When they had Baker Mayfield, once teams started to figure out Baker, they start to stack the box more because you want Baker to throw the ball more than you want Nick Chubb to run it. Same thing with Jacoby Brissett this year, and Jacoby Brissett has exceeded everybody's expectations. He was great for 11 games. For the standard we set for him, he was great. And shout out to Jacoby Brissett. I think I even have a picture of Jacoby yesterday because I want to give him a shout out. Shout out to Jacoby Brissett. He was great this year. Like I said, exceeded expectations for everybody, and great in terms of he was a great pro. He showed up every day. He did his job. Every game rather did his job, and he didn't hurt them at all. Jacoby Brissett never hurt the Browns this year. He wasn't the reason why they lost games. He did his job. Yeah, he had a couple bad picks at times, but for the most part, they were in they were competitive in most of their games. I mean, outside of the Patriots game, and maybe the Dolphins game. Um, but hell, I mean, if you look at the Bills game even last week in the first half, there was a lot of games where in the half, so they were competitive. That he kept them in there. He was doing his job, and Jacoby did his job. And I hope he gets paid and he gets another opportunity. I think he will. I think he's probably going to get another opportunity with one of these teams, whoever takes C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young. Maybe he could be the bridge guy for a little bit till they develop those guys more. Jacoby was great this year. But back to Nick Chubb, I think, Nick Chubb has seen these kind of stacked boxes most of his career. And it's incredible what the guy's still be able to put up with his numbers-wise, excuse me. But now you look with Deshaun Watson coming back, man, just how scary could this guy be with a more open field, with this field more spread out? Because Deshaun Watson's a whole nother animal you have to worry about. He can run with his legs. He can do RPOs now. He can extend the plays. Probably bet just as good as any quarterback in the league. I mean, go look at his last year in Houston, 2020. That's all he did was extend plays because that offensive line was trash. That's threw for 4,800 yards, but he was probably the best play extender in the league that year. If you could look at the highlights, I mean, the stuff this guy was doing, but his whole career, game-winning touchdowns, clutch plays. I mean, just he gives you a whole other element. But that's going to really benefit Nick Chubb because Nick Chubb now he's just going against a shorter box. Man, I can't see what this looks like because especially with the running concepts the Browns have. They're once that run game gets clicking, the blocking. You got Coach Bill Callahan, who's an excellent offensive line coach, probably the best in the league. Couple that with Stefanski's scheme. When that run game gets going, they're tough to beat, and they're almost unbeaten. Sometimes when it's like yesterday, I thought Stefanski fine. I think Stefanski yesterday probably was his best game he's coached this year, and I think it's one of the best games he's coached in a while. Because when things got a little tough there, the offense got a little stagnant. Because the Bucs defense is great. Devin White's I love watching Devin White play. That dude's a hell of a player. My gosh, the way he can cover sideline to sideline is unbelievable. But back to regardless of that, but I thought Stefanski did his best coaching job yesterday that I've seen in a long time. Because especially at the end of the game, I like how he set up that. For instance, like the Amari Cooper play. When Amari Cooper had the ball, when the Browns had the ball and they threw the game, basically was the game when he played Amari Cooper in overtime to set up on the 2-yard line. You look at the two plays prior to that, he handed the ball to Nick Chubb twice. They were positive. They were the go-to run plays, the same run that was killing him the whole game. Nick Chubb lines up on the right side, goes left, and just right off the tackle. That run was just killing the Buccaneers in the fourth quarter and in overtime too. But I love how Stefanski called that at the end, and he started to do that throughout the game. He would run the ball with Chubb, positive runs, and then he'd go right to the number one receiver, Amari Cooper, and he'd set it up. And I think we hadn't seen it enough consistently this year. I think you'll see it a lot more now, especially you're going to see a lot more now, especially with Deshaun coming back. But I think Stefanski overall, though, like I was saying, I think yesterday was his best game that I've seen him coach just in a while, just from a coaching standpoint. Maybe you can go pick some other games this year. Maybe the play calling is a little better. Maybe the Steelers game earlier on in the year I thought was a great game he called. But I think yesterday, just like I said, I think the way he managed that game and at the end there, he finally went to his go-to guys and won the game in a critical points too. Because I mean, man, it's just great because Tom Brady had twice in the fourth quarter, or he had a, he had an opportunity in the fourth quarter, and he had two times in overtime to win that game. And a lot of people, let's be honest, we're all thinking, okay, Tom's got the ball. We're probably not going to win this game. He's probably going to close it. But again, I think just you saw complimentary football yesterday at the end of the game, which is something we haven't seen in a long time. And look what happens. And I think a lot of too, like I said, it's just I think Joe Woods was aggressive, and I think Kevin Stefanski finally gave the ball and fed the ball to the guys that need it at the end of the games. You give the ball to your best players. Yeah, Amari dropped that ball in the 4th and 9, which is a rare drop for him, and he made up for it after. And I don't expect to see that whole lot from Amari Cooper. He's a great wide receiver, but I love that play. I like the aggressiveness there. I like the trust that he showed Stefanski going for it. But he also that play was set up. It was wide open too. It was a great play call. It was right there, and he just dropped it. But he made up for it. And again, I think that last play to set up the game-winning touchdown at the 2-yard line to Amari Cooper with a little in-and-out route. The defender fell down. Defender slipped on the tire marks too. I don't know if anybody knows, but somebody vandalized the stadium last week and drove onto the field and did some skid marks, some trucks, and there were still some marks on the field. They tried to patch up the best they could in X amount of days, but uh, the guy slid the Bucs defender on that route who was guarding Cooper. He slipped right there on the tire mark, and a lot of people were saying after the game that's how the Browns won because a fan drove his car on the field and left the tire mark. So yeah, that's what we're doing around here now. We're driving on the field and hoping our tire marks help us win the game because they did yesterday. But anyways, but no, I think yeah, I just think Stefanski. Yesterday overall was just a great day. It was a great game. It was awesome the way they finished it. Just like Brissett said after the game, that was bleeping awesome. It was. And then, man, at this play here, David Njoku, one of the best catches you'll see a tight end make. I mean, that's unbelievable. Look at that catch too. That's crazy. I mean, I'll put this full screen. Uh, yeah, I mean, look at that. I mean, just the extension, the ball placement. Brissett threw that ball. I think it's a little high, but I think when you throw it in the back of the end zone on 1-on-1, it was a pretty good throw. Plus, I mean, David obviously showed he can make that catch. And, it's funny. I was listening to Stefanski today in the press conference. I heard it on my phone. And they said they had prepped that play for this week during practice. And they had worked out it on Friday. He said last week that he goes, hey, we worked on that situation. We thought if we got that look, we got David 1-on-1 in the back of the end zone. And I really like that play call there because I feel like that was obviously the game was on the line. It was like 4th and 9 or 4th and 10. This was it to tie it, to go to overtime. And, I think David Njoku is a pretty good red zone target. I feel like he doesn't get targeted enough. And I think a lot of that it was due to quarterback play. But I think now you've seen more this year. David obviously got his contract in the offseason. But, I mean, he's been pretty good this year. I think this year is his best season I've ever seen him play, just from his impact, production. Remember, go back to the Steelers game. He had a monster game. He obviously got hurt middle of the year, but I think his impact and his versatility, all the things you can use him with, which is a whole nother element to this offense now, adding Deshaun Watson, I think, I think David Njoku, I think his numbers are going to really jump here with Deshaun Watson. So I think his red zone targets will be really high. And when you got a guy that can do stuff like this, and also when you have a running game with Nick Chubb, which pick your poison, and then you got. It's really exciting because it's really interesting to see what they're going to look like with this guy back. How much different is this offense going to look? How's he going to look? Number one, because he hasn't played in almost 2 years. But also, how is he going to look with this offense and the players around him? Because Deshaun Watson's never really had this type of supporting cast around him. I mean, he had, DeAndre Hopkins in Houston, who was a great wide receiver, and he played with him. But he's never had the type of running game he's about to have. He's never had the type of, support up front. And, it's crazy. I saw something the other day. If you look at Deshaun Watson, look at this stat here. So he came to the league in 2017. He came in one game and he started 6 games a year. They didn't start him right away, but he came third that year. It's great. Only 6 games he started that year. He still finished third in the offensive rookie of the year award. Still finished third. When you look at his second year, though, look at this stat right here over here, where I have it highlighted. 62 sacks his second year in the league. That's insane. 62 sacks, and that guy still threw for 4,100 yards and threw only 9 interceptions, so less than 10 interceptions and 26 touchdowns after getting sacked 62 times. And he made the Pro Bowl that year, and their team went 11-5 and made the playoffs. So, again, you see the impact this guy makes. And he completed 68% of his passes. But again, 68% of his passes, a winning record, make the playoffs, 26 touchdowns, only 9 interceptions, and he got sacked 62 times. That should be a damn misdemeanor on the Texans organization. How the hell do you let your young quarterback get sacked 62 times? And I knew he was. I remember I didn't really watch him a lot when he was in Houston because I'm a Browns fan. Also, we don't. I mean, I saw a lot of their games when they played at night. I knew they were winning when he was there. Besides the last year, like I said, you see there when he played, they were 3-3. They were 500, so they were rebuilding. Then they came back the next year, like I said, 11-5. The next year, 10-5. And then the last year, they just look at the team he was playing with. You want to hold that against him, then. Not sure what you were watching, but again, and there was a metric I heard earlier too. They said about his last year in Houston, he threw for 40. He led the league in passing right there, as you could see, with 4,800 yards, 70% on 70% completion percentage, which is insane. And he got sacked 49 times that year. And when you go watch those highlights, that's why I said he might have been the best play center in the league that year. Because every time you watched him, he was scrambling all around the place. I mean, it was still dropping dimes. But the metric I heard earlier, they said something like it was like wins to impact ratio or something like that. And they said basically what the stat was if you took Deshaun Watson out that team, they would have won 0-16. The only reason why they won 4 games was because of him. And the fact that he was able to win 4 games in the NFL with that team he had that year, the people he was throwing to, and that offensive line, I mean, and still threw for 4,800 yards to 70% completion percentage, 33 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions, so really efficient. Again, it just speaks to his impact. This guy's been a winner everywhere he's gone. He's been a winner in college. Yeah, I mean, in college he lit up Nick Saban twice. The only guy I ever saw throw for almost 500 yards twice on Nick Saban, and they probably should have won that first year too. You remember that game, 2015, Alabama won, or 2015-16 season. Alabama won that year because that game was won on I believe it was a kick return. And remember coming out of halftime of that game? That's how that game was decided. Basically, it was just on a special teams play. But they never lost because of Deshaun Watson. And Houston was only relevant, really, in the years he was there because of Deshaun Watson. And you look what they've been since he's left. I think they picked like 3rd overall last year. They had a high pick list last year. They might have the number 1 pick again this year. It's just a bad organization, and so poorly ran. I mean, you have Bill O'Brien as his head coach. Bill O'Brien's now the coordinator in college at Alabama. Again, I just think I saw that the other 62 times, and the next year 44. Next year after that 49. And so I say all that, and he made the Pro Bowl each and every year. So again, you look at that, you just kind of wonder, gee, what can this guy do with this offensive line, and what can he do, with this running game and with these receivers we have? Because I think Amari Cooper is a number 1 receiver. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is emerging as a number 2, and I think he's going to get better now with Deshaun. You also have what do you get? You still got Kareem Hunt this year, David Njoku, that offensive line. I just think, I mean, I'm just really curious to see what this all looks like, and I think it's going to be pretty good. I think, this week coming up against the Texans, obviously it's going to be a tough game because for all the reasons why. We all know why. It's going to be a very hostile environment. If you're a Cleveland sports fan, equivalent to when LeBron came back the first time in 2010, and it was very hostile. The booing, the chanting, the signs. He's going to see all of it, and there probably gonna be protests outside the stadium before the game. You're probably gonna see all kinds of stuff on Sunday. All right, it is what it is. Let me get a drink of water. Gotta stay hydrated, people. Sometimes I get caught mouth. I said we do all this talking, but like I was saying though, it's gonna be a very hostile environment on Sunday. I think he might come out in the. It depends. I'm really curious how they call the game in the first quarter. I think this. If I'm Stefanski, you want to establish the run game early. Number one, if I win the toss, I'm taking the ball early too, because I want to silence that crowd immediately. But I also think, if I'm Stefanski, run the ball early and start off with some more shorter passes just to get him in rhythm, get him going, get him comfortable, and then open it up as the game goes on. And then obviously, whatever defense gives you, he'll start to take it. And so, again, I think it's a good and a bad game to start off for him, because it's a bad game in terms of the atmosphere. He is human, so you never you don't know what you're going to expect to hear, what you're going to see, the chanting and all that stuff. But I think once they settle in, I hope that and the team rallies around him, and I think they will. You can really feel that yesterday after the game. Just the energy was different. You heard what Myles Garrett said after the game, walking off the field like, "We're not done yet. Don't count us out." Njoku was saying the same thing. Um, and so there's like a belief amongst this team now. They really believe in this guy, and rightfully so. I mean, he's a hell of a player. And so, but again, the belief in this team, the confidence is picking up already with him just being back for 6 weeks. And you could see it yesterday. And I feel like yesterday, that was a lot of why the energy was so high, is because they know what's coming next week. And again, I think his team is going to have to rally around him. I think Joe Woods needs to stay aggressive defensively. I think defensively, they could really create a lot of, they should create a turnover and really, I mean, if you could do what you just did to the Bucs, you definitely should do it to the Texans. And so that's another thing I'll be looking at. I want to see consistency from Joe Woods. This is a game where you should have another. This is an easy build-off game right here. You're playing the worst team in the league, so and you need to, like I said, the team is collectively and the coaching staff. They got to help Deshaun out this week. They got to get him comfortable. But again, they got to have his back, because you can't expect him to go out there and just carry it the first week back. And so I think overall, I think he'll play well. He's either in these types of games, though, you're either really good when it's the crowd's this kind of a hostile environment. You're either really good or you're really bad. And so I think he'll start off getting warmed up. I think they'll do a little short passes, run the ball, just get it, just get his rhythm going, get his confidence going. And I think if they can get up by at least 10 points at halftime, I think he'll come out in the second half, because he'll be comfortable by then. And I think he'll just start to take over a little bit and kind of, get that feel back. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he had a big second half in that game. I just think I've seen this before with a lot of great players when they go back to their former teams and the crowds like that. For instance, like in the NBA, it's usually in the second half is when they really start to get comfortable and get rolling, because now you kind of heard it all. Now you're settled into the game, right? You know what to expect now when you come out of the halftime, and so. That's my prediction for next Sunday. I think he's going to play pretty well. I think in the second half, like I said, I think they'll win. But again, an exciting week, an exciting, probably the most anticipated game in a long time, because we've never had a player like this at quarterback in quite some time. Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see it next Sunday. I think it's going to be really exciting all week. Glad they got the win yesterday. Yeah, go Browns. That was really exciting yesterday. We needed that after Saturday, because, my gosh, Ohio State. I'm still recovering from that one. I don't know what the hell happened, guys. I just that second half. It's Ryan Day. What are you doing? That game Saturday about the Buckeyes. That was just that was all on the coaches. Point blank. Yeah, the players got to take some accountability. if you watch that game, that the coaches did not help those players out at all Saturday. That was a horrendous coaching performance by Ryan Day and that whole staff. Period. Um, no adjustments at halftime. You let Michigan come out there and just do whatever they want in the second half, and you were out there. They look lost, and you know, I, there's been a lot of questions in the last 48 hours, the last couple of days about, is there a cultural problem? Is there a program problem? Well, they don't seem to take that game as seriously as they used to, and they also don't seem to be as physical as they should be, as they used to under Urban Meyer. And even when they had Jim Tressel, they were more physical. And so, again, I don't know. I think I think you're seeing a team too, that a program that is scared to death of the transfer portal because they're so afraid to be harder on guys like they used to, because guys will just transfer. If you make a guy a little uncomfortable and he feels a little sensitive, then he'll just leave. But again, I think as a program, you got to decide. I don't think Nick Saban really cares about that. I don't think Jim Harbaugh cares about that. I don't think you look at all these other coaches that are a little more a little more hard headed, I guess you could say. But they help, they keep a standard, especially when Urban was at Ohio State. I mean, there was players you hear all the time when Urban came in the locker room at Ohio State, they were scared to death when Urban came in the locker room. Everybody was on pins and needles at all times. But again, I think there's a healthy balance between, being close with your players, but also setting a standard. And I think they got to find that balance. If you have guys that can't take that anyways, and are going to transfer every second, then they're probably not going to be great players anyways. Because if you can't take good coaching, and sometimes, maybe your effort's not there, maybe you're just kind of half-assing it. You're not probably not going to be a great player anyways. You just expect everything to just be on a platter for you. That's just not how it works. But again, I think I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens. They still have a slim chance to get in the playoffs. If USC or TCU loses, I think they would get in by default, maybe. But they better start they should have started Saturday right after the game, fixing this stuff, because whatever needs to be addressed now and fast, because you don't know what to expect. You could be in a playoff here in a month. But not only that, just even if you aren't, you can't have this, especially with recruiting coming up, February, the February recruiting cycle, and just, I saw a report, there's 2 guys at the game Saturday that recruited to Michigan. I mean, come on, Ryan Day. You're on the clock, buddy. 2 years in a row is unacceptable. And I know Ryan Day's not from Ohio, so maybe he doesn't fully understand as well, although I think he should by now, just being in the building. He was an assistant at Urban Meyer. But, man, they just looked lost Saturday. They looked confused at times. They just poorly coached. They didn't look prepared in the second half. They didn't look prepared the first half at times either with the defensively. I mean, I know they were trying to play zero coverage to stop the run, but you're going to give up a couple of deep balls here. But just no adjustments. And they were physical in the first half. They outplayed Michigan for the most part. I actually thought they should have been winning more at halftime. I was kind of disappointed at halftime because I looked at the score. I'm like, this should be a 28-10 game. We look at this, they dominate every statistical category. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm glad the Browns won yesterday because we all needed that. And the Cavs won last night. They're rolling. They're starting to pick it up again. But yeah, I don't know Ohio State. But anyways, yeah. Like I said, thank gosh I'm just glad the Browns won. We have something. Finally get to look forward to the game we've all been waiting for all year. This coming Sunday against the Texans, when the franchise QB finally plays his first game. And can't wait to see it next Sunday. And so, yeah, that's my take for today, you guys. As always, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Make sure you, just make sure you like, subscribe, and share. I'm trying to think of something else I was going to say. Go Browns.